Staying with schooling, thousands of coastal schools opened today, just like inland schools that opened last week. What should have been a proud day for parents ended in frustration for some. A number of learners still remain unplaced, and for many of those who are already in class, school infrastructure is a real concern. eNCA reporters have been on the ground. Let's get the latest from Aviwe Mtila in Cape Town, Ronald Masinda in Chintsa East in the Eastern Cape, and Lethiwe Mdluli in Durban. Aviwe, let's start with you, and good evening to all three of you. Here in Cape Town, we know that when Gauteng schools opened last week, there were about 1,000 kids who weren't placed. And one of the reasons given is rapid urbanization, people flooding to the city to get jobs. My understanding is there were at least 600 or so kids not placed in the Cape Town, Western Cape area. Similar reasons given?
So the numbers that we got, Sally, were 955 as it was preparations for the reopening of schools. And of course, the inevitable snaking queues is what we saw today at the various district offices of the Department of Education as day one commenced. We do know, of course, the department saying that they've at least placed 99.2% of grade 1s and grade 8, those that did apply online. But of course, there is that backlog. Hence, we saw those parents out in their numbers. Myriad of issues, Sally, that they're painting out on the ground, from applying timelessly and not getting feedback from the online system itself, to some of those that want placements that are near where they live. There was a peculiar case where one of the parents said that they applied, received a school that doesn't exist. But of course, a lot of them are late applications that we do understand that go into the 25,000 plus numbers. In fact, Sally, I wanted to take a listen to some of what the parents had to say today that were in those snaking queues when their children were supposed to be in school.
She'll be doing grade 10 and she still has not been accepted to any of the schools that I've applied online, because that is what they require us to do, to apply online. I've applied at 4 schools, not even one that she's gotten accepted on.
They gave him a place at the school, a primary school in Salorispas village. That child has to travel from Makassar to Salorispas village. Does the department give him transport? Because they live opposite Makassar High School.
I think this online thing, it doesn't work. It's not working because they tell us to come here. When we go to school, they tell no, you must go to the Department of Education. We come here, and now they're telling us no, there's no space again. We must go that side.
This morning I go to unplaced. They take my money for grade 8 for 2 children. But they didn't tell me I must come here for application. Really now they tell me, I must come get my money. They are full. But why did they take my money in the first place?
You know, Aviwe, that's almost word for word the exact irritation that the Gauteng parents had, that they sent from pillar to post, and they put in schools that are just so far away from where they live. What is the Western Cape government saying in response?
Well, it's asking the parents, similarly to what we heard in Gauteng, that they just need to be patient as they're trying to enroll each and every one of those 955 learners that are yet to be placed. The only difference now is that there are no commitments, as we heard in Gauteng, that by the end of January, each of those, I understand now, it's 571 learners that still need placement in Gauteng will be placed. No commitment in the Western Cape, but they did say that, Sally, they've done a lot more in terms of preparing. You do understand this is a broader infrastructure issue, Sally. A lot of learners coming through to these schools, not enough infrastructure. But the Western Cape government saying that they have at least built 561 classes in preparation for this schooling year. That is triple the amount that they built at this time last year. They did say that they have, in fact, added at least 1,143 new teachers to be adequately allocated in these various classes. Some of those interventions that the MEC of Education in the province says that they've done as they reopen the coastal schools here. Let's take a listen to the MEC.
We are going to work at placing those learners as soon as possible. I can't make a commitment about when every learner will be placed. Consider the fact that every request for placement is unique. Every learner is unique, and it is not easy just simply to place a learner. We've already added 561 classes, which is extraordinary given the fact that we only delivered 212 classrooms last year. So we're building at a rate of almost 4 times the rate of last year. We've also added 1,143 teachers to our basket of posts, and we will continue for the next 3 months to build an additional 280 classrooms to deal with the admission pressure in the Western Cape.
All right, Aviwe, let's bring in our colleague in Durban, Lethiwe Mdluli. Lethiwe, you actually were with the Minister of Basic Education, Angie Motshekga. What did she have to say about the opening today?
Well, Sally, KZN's first day at school went smoothly for the most part. The MEC of Education here in the province, along with the Minister and the Premier of the province, they went to various schools, especially in the Umlazi district, where they visited a preschool and also a primary school, just basically monitoring the first day. We saw a lot of learners making their way into those schools, but majority of the issues that KZN is facing has to do with the repairing of those damaged schools by the floods last year, and also the infrastructure. That problem has been going on for years. It's an ongoing problem that has still not been fixed. And yesterday, Sally, I visited a few schools, one which was damaged by the floods. We did find that almost a year later, that school has not been fixed. And I posed this question to the MEC today, as to why they haven't repaired the schools that were damaged. And the answer that I got is that they are right now busy allocating tenders to various businesses that will be assisting in repairing those schools. But of course, the department is dragging its feet because today was the first day, which means that they've had almost a year to try and fix this issue. And in speaking to unions, they were relaying their frustrations with this, saying that for almost a year, nothing has been done, which means that children today will be in overcrowded classrooms because teachers have not been able to make any other plans. And it's not the teachers' job to actually do this. It's the government's job. And also we spoke about the infrastructure, the aging infrastructure. I posed a question to the minister about this, and she did say that she saw the aging infrastructure in Umlazi, and it's a problem, and it's one of the concerns that they are trying to address as the departments, but they didn't actually share any plans as to how they're going to address these issues. Also, KZN is dealing with the lack of teachers, and it's been an ongoing problem, and the unions have been raising these issues over years. And when we speak to authorities about this, they always say that it's because of the budget cuts and the budget issues. While speaking to the minister about the aging infrastructure, though, this is what she had to say.
We have a major problem with infrastructure. It manifests itself in different ways. It's old schools that were built by apartheid, no staff room, no specialist rooms, very few ablutions. We're discussing with the MEC to say we have to see if we can add another block because the number of toilets we have does not match the number of learners. There are too many learners for the types of seats, number of seats. So it's a big problem. It's a big problem. So infrastructure, it confirms our ongoing challenges with infrastructure. We have limited resources, we have huge demands. We have to deal with new settlements. In the meantime, we have to do a redress. These are apartheid schools, you can see. These trains, and there's nothing more. No specialist room, nothing.
Yeah, apartheid schools, but it's been nearly 3 decades to try and upgrade those schools, I suppose, is the natural response. But when it comes to the flood-damaged schools, you've spoken to the Premier. You did mention earlier that there's this talk of, the tenders are taking a long time. Did you get any more information from the Premier?
Well, we did try to get more information as to the time frame. When can we expect these schools to be fixed or repaired? But unfortunately, we couldn't get a time frame from government. Instead, the Premier actually made an announcement today that KZN will be piloting a new program where they are trying to be more like other provinces such as Gauteng. They are trying to get KZN into the online registration system. They want to pilot it this year, and they are hoping that it's going to work for the province because one thing the Premier did say say is that they don't know how many or the number of pupils that are still out there without schools, and this is an issue for them because all these schools are not using any type of online program, so they are going to be trying to pilot that. But still, it's very interesting that they are trying to move towards this because majority of the schools here in the province are in rural areas and they are lacking in basic infrastructure at the moment, and most of them don't have electricity. Most of the areas I'm also talking about, they do not have water. So a lot of people, when we visit these areas, they always say that they don't have network connection, they don't have electricity. So when we eventually as a province move into the online registration program, it is a wonder how these pupils will be able to then use the system to register at schools. But the Premier did say that they're going to try and make plans for those pupils that are going to be in rural areas. And I do understand that KZN has over about 6,000 schools or close to 7,000 schools in the province, and all these schools, they're going to be trying to put them under this program. The system is not really working in Gauteng, so it's a wonder if it's going to work in KZN with all the issues that the province is currently facing. But when she did announce what they're going to be doing this year, this is what the Premier had to say.
We have more than 2.8 learners in the schools in KwaZulu-Natal. And we've been discussing with the MEC Minister to start exploring maybe with the pilot from this year, the pre-registration. Because as the MEC is saying, it's very difficult that you would still find then that there are parents at the schools and the benches waiting to be enrolled because we did not know how many learners were going to be coming to schools. So we are now starting to see whether shouldn't we also start piloting so that we don't have the huge numbers of learners that are not placed even within the stipulated time, as the MEC was saying. But those are all the programs that we put in place.
Yeah, but as you've explained, Lethiwe, some of the basics are not there. Water, electricity. It really is extremely worrying. Ronald, in the Eastern Cape, we're going to bring you in now. You heard from the acting HOD of the Eastern Cape Department of Education. We know that this is a province traditionally that's been very poor. What did the HOD acting head tell you?
Well, Eastern Cape Education authorities say that they've been working tirelessly to try to right the wrongs of the past. You will remember last year that there were issues with regards to textbooks and stationery, where a number of schools had complained that they were not issued these very important items. And as a result, I mean, the Eastern Cape Education Department has been in and out of court, also trying to defend itself with regards to these matters. But what has happened now, Sally, is that the Eastern Cape Education Department has announced that at least 99% of learners or schools have received the textbooks, with at least 7 out of the 12 districts receiving stationery. And those numbers are expected to improve by the end of the week. With regards to the issue of learner placement, now this is an issue that seemed to be a concern last week. The Eastern Cape Education Department announcing during their own press conference that at least 1,020 learners were still needing placement at their schools. This morning they announced that around 670 learners needed placement, and I've just heard this afternoon from the MEC of Education here, at least half of that number now has now declined. So at least over 300 learners still need placement at schools. Then there were issues of scholar transport, and this was a concern as over 100,000 learners need scholar transport throughout the Eastern Cape. This was an issue with regards to the service providers, taxi associations threatening to strike today at the start of a school season, and that they were yet to receive any of the payments since last year, and that they were concerned that the Transport Department, who has to provide them with that funding, did not. So that matter seems to be resolved now, as all parties, even the Education Department, they sat in a meeting, tried to resolve these issues, and these issues seem to be resolved. Also, the issue of the nutritional program, which affects over 1 million learners throughout the province. That also seems to be something that the Education Department has made a priority, because a lot of children live below the poverty line here in the Eastern Cape, and the meals that they receive in school is very, very important. But we heard from Vandalized, the HOD of education in the province.
We still remain with about 671 that has not been placed yet, but our districts, your Buffalo City, your Nelson Mandela, as well as Sarah Batman, are working flat out to ensure that those learners are placed latest end of this week or next week. But we want to ensure that by next week, all the learners that have not been placed are placed so that teaching and learning proceeds without any hindrance. The only snag now is around the additional classrooms, but we are currently moving those additional classrooms to where they are needed. We have asked the Public Works to assist us on that with service providers. The DBSA is also working on that to move those to the where they are needed.
Yeah, and as you said, those sort of 670 kids at the start of the day who are still needing a place, that is now halved. You can see the authorities are trying to place these children, making such a good point there, Ronald, that for many children it also means a square meal for really poverty-stricken homes. But tragically, we're still seeing schools left behind. You have spoken to a school principal of a school that is just in such dire straits. Tell us more.
Yes, indeed. So this is Alphendale High School. It is located in the Buffalo Flats area. It is a school that is plagued by vandalism. I mean, we've been told stories about criminals coming into the school premises, threatening security with pangas and knives, and only for that school to lose the security. And one of the issues that the Education Department had here in the province was the issue with vandalism, with schools not having properly been fenced. But that school seems to be fenced, but those criminals seem brazen enough to enter that school anytime they want. And what we saw this morning was actually heartbreaking, seeing over 1,200 learners at the school with their parents being told by the principal that they can only enjoy 2 hours of schooling. This is a school without electricity, without water, due to the vandalism. And furthermore, this is a technical school, Sally, and this school has a lot of equipment that helps with the various skills in that space. And a lot of the equipment has either been damaged or stolen, and the cost could amount to millions. You know that the Eastern Cape Education Department had people from their department looking or assessing the damages, but it doesn't seem like things will work out this week. The principal even went as far as saying that, there's no option with regards to homeschooling, as many of the families cannot even afford a laptop or a computer. We heard from him further.
Whilst the country was experiencing intermittent load shedding, we were experiencing total load shedding at the school since September. Then on the 28th, 29th, the 30th, the 31st, and even on the 1st of January, our school was on a continuous basis being vandalized. All cabling, all piping were removed from the school. Our interaction with them can only be for 2 hours. After 2 hours, the child then will have a need to make use of a toilet. So we have to operate for the 2 hours and then dismiss these learners.
That's absolutely tragic, completely criminal, and one wonders if the culprits will ever be arrested for vandalising that school. Ronald Masinda in the Eastern Cape, thank you so much for your time. Lethiwe Mdluli in KwaZulu-Natal, and Aviwe Mtila also in the Western Cape. Thank you so much to all three of you.